Hi, I'm Jamie Mayfield, and the other day I showed a picture of this headband that I Kitchenered closed. I did a Mobius twist on this one, but I Kitchenered it closed so that you cannot see the seam. And I wanted to show you guys how to do that. So I made this one on the Centro, I believe it's the 40 needle, and I made this one on the small Centro, and I believe it's 22 needles, but I'm not exactly sure. So what I did was I started with waste yarn, and remember there aren't live stitches on this end, and I started on the black needle. There's the tail. Now I ended on the black needle, and here's my tail, but I also ended with several rows of waste yarn. Now, the waste yarn is really important that you use very highly contrasting colors. It's also much easier if you use a needle that's appropriate for the size of the yarn. Okay. Now, remember that we're going to Kitchener this into a tube. Okay. So, I'm going to line up my two tails so that my yarn is not biased and my headband won't be biased. And I'm going to have those two lined up, and then I'm going to Kitchener it like so. Okay, so here's where the yarn is coming out. This was the last stitch, or the first stitch on this side, and I'm going to go up out of the work. Now I'm going to go across over to the green and go up out of the work there. Okay, now as we do this, we can check our work. I'm going down into the work of the old stitch, that would be the first one, and up into its next door neighbor. When I say down, I mean I'm going down into the work, then I'm coming up out of the work on his next door neighbor. Then I'm going to cross the street. Now while we're doing this, we can check our work and make sure that a knit stitch is forming. The other thing we can check is to make sure that these stitches are the same size as these stitches. Okay, so that one's a little loose. I want to go ahead and give it a little tug and make it a little tighter, because I don't want anybody to be able to see where I started and where I stopped. I'm down and up, and I did this on the smaller one so that you wouldn't have to watch me do so many stitches. Because it's important, if you get this, you can fast forward to the end, because I need to show you how every stitch is gone through twice. But you'll remember that those first two stitches, we did not go through twice. Now, still checking my work and make sure that I can see a knit stitch forming. Okay. Whoops. I'm going to pick it up because I think I can make better time that way. Make sure those stitches are the same size. You want to make sure that your waste yarn is highly contrasting so you don't miss a stitch. Now, when I was making the project, I started with waste yarn, and then when I switched to project yarn, I stopped on the last needle with the project yarn and started on the black needle with the project yarn. I stopped with the waste on the last needle, started with the project yarn on the first black needle. It's important that you start and stop at the same exact spot so that your headband doesn't try to bias. Now we're coming around here to the other side. Get my little tails out of the way. You got to be careful with the tails on the one end because they're live stitches and they will run like an old lady's pantyhose. And I don't want that in there. we're going down into the work, up out of the work, across the street, down and up, across the street. It's really pretty easy once you get the hang of it. Okay. Down into the old, up into the new. Down into the old, up into the new. Down into the old, up into the new. So I'm used to doing this because I work on a circular sock knitting machine. And we do this Kitchener stitch every time we close a toe, if we make cuff down socks. And it's very important to learn how to do the Kitchener stitch from the outside of the work so that you don't Kitchener with your waste yarn on the inside of the project, because that's a real pain to get that waste yarn out. You can ask me how I know. I bet you can figure it out. All right, now as we come to these final stitches, see, we've got them right there. Get this guy right here. Now we're back to that first stitch, so we're going to go down and then we're going to go up. Okay, this is the last stitch. Go into the first stitch. Be careful, that little guy he's a sleeper. So we're going to go down, and I've got a sleeper right there. And up. Then I'm going to go down and up. That one will be a little loose. And I'm going to go down and up so that we go through all those stitches twice. Now I have to remove my waste yarn. So what I'm going to do is just pull up a leg of a stitch until the yarn breaks. This is why I don't use crochet cotton. Okay. And that guy wants to not come loose. Okay, there's that side. So, where'd my needle go? I'm going to pull up the leg of a stitch on this side. Pull it till the yarn breaks. Then I'm going to spread that back out. And all my yarn, except for that one little guy right there. There we go. So now I have to cut this because it's entrapped around the headband. Cut this. Okay, now we have to hide our two tails. So I'll do the green one first since it's already threaded. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it up to where it's snug, and I'm just going to chase it down the leg of that stitch, or that row. Tuck it in and chase it back up. Okay. Now I'm going to cut that, give it a little tug so that when I stretch it back out, that's hidden in there. Now, right here, see my tail? It's a little bit pink because I started right where the red yarn changed to red. Okay, and I'm going to run it over here. And I'm just going to send it down the leg of a row. Back up the leg of a row. And I shouldn't have started right there on the red, or right there where it changed. I should have let myself have a little bit of the tail, shouldn't I? Anyway, thanks for joining me. Check out my other videos about sock knitting machines. Like and subscribe. And hey, if you like this, you learned something, I wouldn't mind if you put a thumbs up on my video.